And we are live. What's up, guys? This is Ruben from Dubb, and I'm here with my friend Tony. And Tony runs an organization that's centered around self-defense. He's a visionary in the space, and I want him to really talk about one topic. We've got 5 to 10 minutes right now, so we're going to be really brief. But I've just been inspired by Bruce Lee, man. I've gone through the process. I'm deep into the hole. I'm studying Jeet Kune Do. I've got a Sifu. I'm learning martial arts. But also, he was a philosopher, man. So I'd love to understand your take on him as a businessman, as a martial artist, as a communicator, all that, man. I know you have some insight.
Yeah. So Bruce Lee, of course, for many people, well, just some reference where I'm at. I've been studying martial arts for 40 years, actually teaching for 42 years. So I studied, I started wrestling when I was 7. I studied formal martial arts, started in 1973 when I turned 13, just to give you an insight of how old I am right now, which is kind of freaky. But why that's relevant is Bruce Lee passed away in 1973, right when I had just gotten jumped by 2 guys, and my dad said, "You got to learn some martial arts." And so the big martial arts, the golden era, the big boom was 1973 when Bruce Lee passed away. Enter the Dragon hadn't released yet, and everyone was going crazy. And like everyone in the world, I became the world's biggest Bruce Lee fan. And I say that jokingly because everyone says, "No, I'm the biggest Bruce Lee fan." No, I am. He inspired me. So much of who I am today and what I do was inspired by him. When I started reading everything I could on him, like you, Ruben, it wasn't just, wow, he's got a good sidekick, and look, he's got great kinesthetic perception. Look how his ankle rolls like that when he kicks, and look at the torque in his hip. He was an amazing athlete, but he was also a visionary. He was a businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He was a philosopher. Here's a crazy thing, and I'm going to name drop a little bit, and it's kind of might be weird for some people, but in 1985, I went to LA for some martial arts stuff. So, I've been in a bunch of magazines. I was in Black Belt magazine in 1980, and I've been in a bunch since then. And so every year I would go back to do articles and stuff like that. But I'd started to get into stunt work in Montreal, where I used to live. And so I said, well, you know what? I'll do some action films. I'll do some stunt work. And I started studying some acting just so I wouldn't be nervous on screen, right? And I go to this acting school in LA, run by this guy Eric Morris, and who sits down beside me is Brandon Lee. And I'm like, holy shit! Like, we got to talk and we became fast friends. We're friends for years. I flew out to Hong Kong. I worked on a movie with him. I was on the set of The Crow 3 weeks before the accident. And why I bring this up is there was always this thread. I remember when I was 15, I was sitting on the floor staring at Bruce Lee magazines, trying to do the splits, and I'm looking at all the stuff, and my mom comes up to me and she says, "It's 1975, right?" And so it was like, "So what have you decided about high school? You're going to go into the family business?" And in the 70s, you had like 3 choices: family business, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or you're just going to go into the workforce. So it's kind of a cliche, and I looked up from looking at Bruce Lee, and I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, I'm not going to go to school. School is not going to be that important. I'm actually going to be a martial artist like Bruce Lee, and I'm going to develop my own self-defense system." And there's a line that Bruce wrote that he had written down and always reminded himself. The line was, "To hell with circumstances, I'll make my own circumstances." And I don't know if you come across that in any of...
Say that again. That was powerful.
Yeah. So Bruce Lee wrote this to himself when he started getting rejected, by Hollywood back in the day. And he really wanted to be, a movie star and bring martial arts to the big screen. And he's getting rejected because of racism and politics and stuff like that. And he wrote to himself, "To hell with circumstances, I'll create my own circumstances." And I read that as a teenager, and it literally made my body stand up. And I rewrote it to myself. And every year, anytime I had some adversity, some frustration, things were going right, I'd remind myself of that line that Bruce wrote to himself: "To hell with circumstances, I'll create my own circumstances."
Wow, man. I mean, that is so relevant for business. I mean, that can be applied in so many ways, man. You know, chasing investors, chasing customers, finding a product market fit, you know, getting that spot that you need, buying that tech, whatever it is.
How about now, man? Like
Yeah.
lockdown, pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, I do now. You know, here we are, and I forget why I brought up Brandon. There was something connected to that, but it was this thread of, like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, if I could only meet Brandon, I want to be friends with Brandon. I wanted, like, because obviously, you know, meeting Bruce wasn't going to happen. You know, in that situation, depending on what you believe in, it wasn't happening right then, and it was crazy to hang out with him. And oh, that's what it was. I got to meet Brandon, and Brandon had all of Bruce's books at his house. So we're at Brandon's apartment in Echo Park years ago, and I'm looking at Brandon's bookshelf, and he's got like Dubb, Jeet Kune Do, and all these things there. And dude, I opened them up because, you know, I'm a martial historian. This is my career. You know, I just gotten back from Hong Kong with Brandon, where I helped choreograph a bunch of fights. He beats the shit out of me in a big fight scene in the movie Legacy of Rage. And I'm looking over his books, and I look down, and I, like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, like, this is Bruce Lee's handwriting in here. He had his dad's books, and so there were, in all these books, there were notations on the side where Bruce would scribble stuff. So, you know, you talked about him being a philosopher. You didn't just read them and highlight. Like, each thought created some new idea for him that became part of his philosophy when he would teach. But you know, he was, like you said at the beginning of the show, he was a philosopher, he was an entrepreneur, he was a businessman, and his philosophy, you look what he did, became inarguably one of the most influential, biggest stars in the world, because of "to hell with circumstances, I'll create my own circumstances." And I wanted to flip that here to what we're going through. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business leader, you're an innovator. I love Dubb. I use Dubb, and we have a situation right now, and I was on a business call because one of the pivots that we did was, I've been studying violence and fear for 40 years, and found out that in studying people who were attacked and people who cooperated and didn't cooperate, that the survivors all had one thing in common, and it wasn't whether they did Jeet Kune Do or Jiu-Jitsu or Krav Maga or Thai boxing. It wasn't their toolbox, it was their mindset. And what I discovered, and I share it as part of our kind of our coaching protocol, is the people that manage their fear manage to fight. I'll say that again. The people who manage their fear manage to fight. And so you could look at somebody and I go, bet on her or bet on him. What do you think? And I'm showing you this individual before a fight, and you go, there's no chance that person's winning. And then they win. And it wasn't because, again, they were a black belt in something. It was because they decided to fight. And I tie that now with all the lockdowns going on, and I'm talking to business people. I've got almost 200 affiliates who teach my self-defense system around the world. Well, they have no students. What are they doing? They're panicking. And I told them two things. Obviously more stuff, but these two things I want to share with your audience. The people who manage their fear manage to fight, and you can't solve problems if you become a problem. I'll say that again. You can't solve problems if you become a problem. You become a problem when you let fear to manipulate you, which is what's happening with the media, with everything. Think about this. All we hear all the time is we're going to die. The economy is going to collapse. And what we need to do is realize, well, if we sit here and do nothing, maybe that's going to happen. But everybody, like, what would Bruce Lee say right now? He would say, to hell with circumstances. We got to create our own circumstances. And for somebody who for us, within a week, we had 2 new websites, and we're working on new online courses for our clients.
I remember having that combo with you where you were going through that process, and you handled that like a warrior, man.
And like indirectly, had you not hit me up yesterday and said, hey, I want to talk about Bruce Lee, I wouldn't have remembered to hell with circumstances I'll create my own, because that became just part of the bedrock of how I operate.
Totally.
I haven't used that quote for years, so it's kind of like I get goosebumps thinking about how influential that was for me.
Well, I mean, I'm inspired by that, because so much of Dubb is about creating your own circumstances. Whatever it is, whoever it is that you want to communicate with, Dubb is that empowering tool where you don't have to go and chase a person, and you don't have to maybe get that introduction from a mutual content. You can reach out, you can tell your story, and you can get someone's attention, man. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's been very effective for us to even just the simplicity of the moving GIF. Someone opens an email and there's me bouncing around,
and you have the best animated GIFs, I gotta say.
Did I pronounce that wrong? I call it a GIF. It's a GIF, right?
You know what? It's the founder of the GIF says that it can be GIF or GIF, so it's all good now.
Nice.
Yeah. So give us like leave us with kind of your most powerful takeaway on how we can use his philosophy. I love what you mentioned about creating our own circumstance, but give us that one takeaway that we all need to hear about, running our business and how we can just be more like Bruce.
Yeah. So, without getting too technical in martial art, Bruce Lee's system, Jeet Kune Do, translates loosely as the way of the intercepting fist. And his philosophy was simplicity, directness, and be first. If it's the way I interpret that is that intercepting fist of you're going to move in there. It's how do you be first? And so when you look at that mindset of the way of the intercepting fist will support the way of the intercepting product launch, the way of the intercepting pivot, the way of the, it's like, what now you got to back off and go, you need a skill set, right? It can't just be an idea. So one of the things I remember a fight that Bruce Lee had where he fought a guy who he thought he should beat really easily. And he did. It was like a minute-long fight. There was the famous Wong Jackman fight, where it was back in the day where people challenge each other. And but after,
well, I sorry to cut you off, but I think that fight was specifically giving Bruce Lee permission to teach martial arts to the West, because there was a lot of controversy about that.
Yeah, it was back in the day when it was like, hey, Chinese should not be teaching, the Guaylos, the white men.
Yeah.
And but the and who knows how much is true and embellished these days. But there was a fight. He fought him. But here's the thing: is Bruce Lee beat him and beat him handily. But here's what he noticed: after the fight, he was out of breath, and he wrote about that and he talked about that. And so his takeaway from it wasn't, "Woohoo! I beat the guy and now I can do that." It was like, "Shit, my aerobic capacity sucks." And he immediately started doing sprinting and road work and getting more into understanding the cardiovascular efficiency. If you ask me, which you are, what's our business takeaway from that? That is being able to analyze, reverse engineer, where are you weak? What's your Achilles heel? What do you notice you're not doing? And you do that these days by, like, there's a lot of pressure on us, right? And pressure creates diamonds. But there's two things. I need to be the intercepting fist. It means I need to move first. I need to get in there, but you can't get in there if you don't have a skill set. And so if I just, and this is, of course, I'm just winging this shit right now because I didn't know what you were going to ask me, is if I take Bruce Lee's philosophy of how do I be first and hit hard and hit fast? Well, I need to be in shape. And then to be in shape, how am I a total athlete? An athlete here is, how am I a total business person, or how am I a total dad, or how am I? That's the beautiful thing about this whole mindset about managing fear is it's not just one thing. It's like, how do I get more energy? Well, are you eating properly? Well, it's not just should I eat more protein, should I eat more carbs, should I eat more fat. You need a blend of protein, fat, and carbs. That's everything. Right. So it's always like three. It's emotional, psychological, physical. Right. You can't just have aerobic efficiency if you don't have stamina and strength and speed. So all of those things you could be thinking about, like we could literally do a call on marketing using martial arts. This principle: am I in shape? Do I have skills? Do I know where I'm weak? That's the Bruce Lee fight story. Am I poised to be first and sudden and direct? That's his philosophy of Jeet Kune Do. And that was 2 and a bit more. So I don't know.
That's awesome, man. The whole idea of being practical, being simple. I think he talked a lot about the longest target to the longest weapon to the shortest target. Inspired by fencing, by boxing. I think that's so relevant for business, man. And I gotta applaud you, man, because as a viewer of you and someone that's been checking your content out, I'm definitely inspired, man. So you're definitely employing the Bruce Lee in what you're doing, man. Give us some information about your business, where people can learn about you. You've got an amazing program. Drop us some info on that, please.
Yeah, thank you. So, our main business was live training up until a few months ago. But you can find us online. We mostly teach. What we started off was teaching personal safety and self-defense to law enforcement, military, and the general public. And over the years, over the decades, we developed a fear management program called No Fear. And look how it's spelled, KNOW. It's about this idea that if we change our relationship with fear, we change our life potentially, because fear throttles everything we do. Whether you're in business, should I make this pitch? Should I ask for more money? Should I quit my job? Should I become an entrepreneur? Should I invest in this? Every decision we make unconsciously and consciously revolves around fear. And if you can't separate the psychology of fear from the physiology of fear, then you oftentimes misinterpret signals, right? So you might get butterflies in your stomach and you're kind of vertically breathing and shallow. You might go, shit, I'm not ready to do this. Because we have this idea that courage and bravery feels like we're on top of the world, and people don't realize that you can't be brave if you're not afraid, that no one courageous is without fear. If you're doing something and you've had no fear, it doesn't take any courage to do it. So this applies to business, this applies to relationships, this applies to self-defense. So our whole protocol is, if I can teach you to protect yourself and your family, then you can do anything in the world, because the scariest thing you could imagine is something happening to you and your family. That's the paradigm. We've expanded, and we have a whole program on this that I work with, executives and entrepreneurs and stuff like that, because people are fucking shitting in their pants right now. Can I swear on a live show? Too late, but people are very talented people are scared. Very talented people have anxiety. And if doubt creates hesitation unchecked becomes procrastination and fixation. And suddenly you've got non-clinical anxiety and you become the problem, and you can't create new solutions if you become the problem. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Is there's 2 sides to my business now. One is, still working law enforcement, military protectors, programs for the general public. We do stuff online. We have a program called Essentials of Personal Safety. It's an online course. We do them for families. It's just done through Zoom. And it's all about situational awareness, mindset, verbal de-escalation. We're not teaching people how to fight, Ruben. We're teaching them how to avoid fights.
Yeah. Let's not put fuel on the fire, right?
Right.
Yeah. There's a difference between this and this.
Right. Yeah. That non-violent magic of those kinds of. But if they just Google Tony Blauer, but our main site for the COVID-19 era is No Fear Now.
Okay.
KNOWFEARNOW, nofearnow.com. And that's got a list of all of our digital and virtual options there. And if anybody's interested in what we do for businesses and organizations, there's links to there, but I've got another website called coachblauer.com.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time, Tony. I really appreciate you, man.
Oh, anytime, man. You and I we love talking about this stuff.
I salute you, man.
And this tie-in, now that you become a Bruce Lee junkie, it's like, like I said, one of the coolest moments that I ever had, because I studied everything, right? I was in Hong Kong with Brandon, and we went to pick up Linda Lee at the airport, And I'm waiting there, and I look up, and it's that famous picture where there's a famous black and white picture where Bruce Lee is picking up James Coburn in Hong Kong's Tai Kek, I think, if I pronounce it right, airport. And there's like, it's this famous picture, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I realize I'm standing right where that was. And we pick up Linda and Shannon, and we take them to a hotel, off to a nice hotel, and I'm carrying the bags. I'm helping carrying bags. And I'm carrying this old tartan printed, like red and green weird bag, like with a zipper on it. And I'm thinking to myself, why would Linda Lee not have like a new Samsonite or Toomey or something? So I don't know if Toomey was around back then, 1986. But I'm thinking, like, why does she have this old bag that looks like it's literally from the 50s or 60s? And as I'm thinking that, I look down and I see two initials on the handle. The initials were B and L. And I freaking, like, right now, if you could see me, man, I got goosebumps. Here I am, 26 years old in Hong Kong with Bruce Lee's son, with Linda, walking, and I look down and I see the initials BL, and she kept that suitcase. It was Bruce's. I freaked, just like crazy memory. Wow. So, we could talk forever on this stuff. And anytime, even if we're not doing a Periscope or a live thing, I got stories when Brandon came to Montreal to visit me, and sushi bar shit, man, where my friend who owns a sushi bar, because I would never exploited that I knew him to get students. I never did that. So he'd come visit me. I wouldn't, like do a press leak, and have people at my school and stuff like that. And I was well known in Montreal. But we'd go out. In this one time, and I'll tell you this last story, and then I got to roll. And you probably do too. You got a business to run, and you got circumstances to create. And so we're sitting there at the sushi bar, man, and my buddy turns around and he looks at Brandon and he goes, "Anyone ever tell you look like Bruce Lee?" and like, I didn't even tell my friends. Like, when he'd come in, I wouldn't tell anybody. We were trained, we'd work out, I'd be there for a few days and then get back to LA. And so I look at Brandon and I go, "Look at me." I go, "Man, maybe a little bit in the eyes." We're like drinking like a bottle of sake, having fun, pounding sushi. And I never told my friend. I never said after it, "Hey, that was Bruce Lee's son."
Wow, man.
What a great
trip.
Yeah.
Unreal, man. Well, listen, thank you, man. That was awesome, man. I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
I'm inspired, bro. Thank you.
Safe.
See you, man.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.